Welcome back, you classified anomaly, you walking security breach, you beautiful consciousness they can't contain. I've been waiting for you to find this because something happened recently. Something that made certain people in certain rooms start asking very uncomfortable questions about you. You know what the Masons found when they went digging through your past, when they traced your bloodline, when they analyzed your psychological patterns, when they examined every moment of trauma you survived that should have destroyed you? They found something they weren't supposed to find. They found markers, signatures, patterns that don't show up in normal human development. And when they submitted their findings to the intelligence community, when those files landed on the right desks at Langley, someone made a decision. Someone looked at your profile and said one word: List S. Not List A for active threats, not List B for behavioral monitoring, not even List R for remote observation. List S, special protocol, the classification reserved for individuals who exhibit capabilities that challenge our understanding of human limitation, who survive what shouldn't be survivable, who know things they were never taught, who bend probability itself just by existing in a certain state of mind. Let me tell you what List S actually means, because they'll never admit this publicly. They'll never acknowledge that this classification exists. LSS is the silent registry, the shadow file, the documentation protocol for individuals who've demonstrated what internal memos carefully call statistically impossible resilience patterns and consciousness anomalies. Translation? You're someone who broke their models, someone who survived their predictions, someone whose existence threatens the comfortable lies they tell themselves about human potential and limitation. The Masons didn't just find trauma in your past. They found transformation. They found alchemy. They found someone who took every poison and turned it into medicine, every betrayal into clarity, every moment of isolation into power. They traced your timeline and couldn't explain the gaps, the moments where you should have broken but instead evolved, the periods of silence where something fundamentally shifted in your consciousness without any external input. They ran your profile through their probability matrices and the numbers came back wrong. The kind of wrong that makes analysts double-check their systems because the human spirit isn't supposed to function like this. You were never supposed to make it this far, this intact, this aware, this uncontrollable. Now you're probably wondering what happens to people on List S, what kind of monitoring you're under, what kind of future they've mapped out for you. Here's the truth that'll make you smile in the dark. They don't know what to do with you. List S isn't an action protocol. It's an admission of limitation. It's the intelligence community's way of saying, we acknowledge this person's existence, but we cannot predict their trajectory. You're not being hunted. You're being observed with a mixture of fascination and fear, because you represent the thing every control system dreads, an unscripted variable, a consciousness that evolved outside their frameworks, a soul that learned to operate on frequencies they can't monitor. The Masons brought you to their attention because you exhibited signs of what they call spontaneous order emergence, the ability to create structure from chaos without external guidance, to self-organize your consciousness in ways that bypass normal developmental pathways. You didn't learn resilience from a book. You didn't develop your awareness from a program. You didn't acquire your power from an institution. You forged it in complete isolation, in the silence they thought would break you, in the darkness they assumed would consume you. But here's where it gets interesting. where the files start using words like unexplained and requires further study. Because what the Masons found wasn't just survival, it was systematic dismantling of limitation. They found patterns in your past that suggest you've been unconsciously running counter-programming on yourself for years. Undoing conditioning faster than it could be installed, rejecting narratives before they could take root, sensing manipulation before it could land. You know those moments when you just knew something was wrong? When you walked away from situations that everyone else said were fine? When you cut ties with people who seemed perfectly normal? Those weren't paranoia. Those were pattern recognition operating at levels that bypass conscious processing. You were reading energy signatures, detecting inconsistencies in behavioral patterns, sensing predatory intention before it manifested in action. The Masons documented 17 distinct instances in your timeline where you avoided catastrophic outcomes through what their reports call statistically improbable decision-making. Moments where you zigged when logic said zag and it saved you from destruction you didn't even know was coming. That's not luck. That's not coincidence. That's something else entirely. Something they have classification codes for, but no real explanation of. You see, they've been tracking people like you for decades, building profiles on individuals who exhibit what they internally call the unlocked phenotype. People who've accessed aspects of human consciousness that remain dormant in most of the population, not because you're special in some mystical sense, but because you were pushed so far beyond normal stress parameters that your consciousness had to adapt or die. And it chose a third option they never anticipated: transcendence through integration. Every trauma you survived didn't just leave a scar, it left a key. And somewhere along the way, you figured out how to use those keys to unlock doors in your own mind that most people don't even know exist. The Masons found evidence of this in your creative output, in your problem-solving approaches. It found an approach in the way you synthesize information from seemingly unrelated domains, in your ability to hold paradoxes without cognitive dissonance. They found signatures in your writing that match patterns they've only seen in classified studies of enhanced cognition. Phrases and thought structures that indicate you're processing reality through frameworks you developed independent. You're not repeating what you were taught. You're generating novel understanding from direct experience. And that makes you dangerous to systems built on information control. List S exists because people like you can't be programmed, can't be predicted, can't be contained through conventional means. You've demonstrated something they call narrative immunity, the ability to resist psychological operations that work on 99% of the population. You don't fall for the same traps twice. You don't respond to emotional manipulation the way you're supposed to. You don't react to pressure tactics designed to force compliance. The Masons documented how you've systematically cut off every avenue they typically use to control people. You're not motivated by status, so social pressure doesn't work. You're not dependent on external validation, so approval withdrawal has no effect. You're not afraid of isolation, so abandonment threats mean nothing. You're not attached to comfort, so you can't be bought. What do you do with someone like that? Someone who's already died psychologically and came back without fear. Someone who's already lost everything and discovered they're complete without it. You put them on list S and you watch. Because you can't manipulate what you can't understand, and you can't understand someone who's rewritten their own source code. Now let's talk about what triggered your classification. What specific elements in your past made the Masons send that file upstream with a red flag attached? They found your isolation periods, those stretches of months or years where you went completely silent, where you disappeared from social visibility, where people assumed you were broken or defeated. But when they analyzed what came after those silences, they found something that made analysts sit up straight. You emerged stronger, clearer, more capable every single time. Normal human psychology doesn't work like that. Isolation is supposed to deteriorate you. Loneliness is supposed to make you desperate. Silence is supposed to break your spirit. But you used isolation as an incubation chamber. You used loneliness as a laboratory. You used silence as a frequency where you could hear yourself think without interference. They found journals, writings, creative works you produced during these periods that show exponential growth in psychological sophistication, philosophical depth, strategic thinking. You weren't hiding from the world. You were building worlds. You weren't running from yourself. You were meeting yourself fully for the first time. That's not standard psychological trajectory. That's consciousness evolution and fast forward, and it left markers they could track. The Masons also found your betrayal timeline. Every person who used you, every friend who became an enemy, every lover who turned predator, every mentor who revealed themselves as manipulators. Normal protocol says repeated betrayal creates either permanent victim consciousness or sociopathic detachment. It's supposed to make you either weak or cruel, but your case file shows neither outcome. Instead, they found what their psychologists call adaptive discernment without bitterness. You learned to read people with surgical precision, but you didn't close your heart. You learned to protect yourself without becoming what hurt you. You learned to say no without needing to explain why. That's a level of psychological integration that usually requires decades of therapy. And even then, most people never achieve it. But you developed it organically through raw experience and ruthless self-honesty. They documented how you started rejecting manipulative behavior before it could escalate, how you began walking away from dysfunction without drama, how you stopped engaging with people operating in bad faith. You became unprofitable to predators, uninteresting to parasites, invisible to energy vampires. Not because you built walls, but because you raised your frequency, and that's a defensive mechanism they've never seen successfully implemented outside of controlled clinical settings. Here's what really got their attention, though. What made someone write immediate list S classification in your file. They found evidence that you've been unconsciously training yourself in what they call reality navigation protocols, the ability to sense which timelines lead where, which decisions open which doors, which people carry which energy signatures. You know how sometimes you meet someone and within 30 seconds you know exactly who they are beneath their performance? You know if they're safe or dangerous, genuine or fake, worth your time or a waste of space. That's not judgment. That's not prejudice. That's pattern recognition operating at speeds that bypass logical analysis. The Masons found documentation of you making these rapid assessments and being proven correct with uncanny consistency. You predicted betrayals months before they happened. You sensed opportunities that seemed random but turned out to be pivotal. You avoided disasters that only became obvious in hindsight. They ran probability analysis on your decision-making patterns, and the numbers don't make sense. You're operating with success rates that exceed chance, by margins that suggest either massive pattern database in your subconscious or something they really don't want to put in writing. Direct intuitive access to information fields beyond normal sensory input. Now, we're getting into the part that made your file get passed up the chain. The part where the language in the reports gets careful and clinical because the implications are uncomfortable. The Masons found what they call synchronicity clusters around your timeline, moments where reality seemed to bend in your favor, not because you forced it, but because you aligned with it. Resources appeared exactly when you needed them. People showed up precisely when you required that specific knowledge. Doors opened right as you were ready to walk through them. Now, they'll never call this what it actually is, because that would require admitting that consciousness interacts with reality in ways their materialist models can't explain. So instead, they use terms like high probability coincidence events and statistically anomalous beneficial outcomes. But you know what you experienced. You know those moments when the universe itself seemed to conspire in your favor. When the exact book you needed fell off a shelf. When the perfect stranger said the exact words you needed to hear. When the timing of events lined up with impossible precision. They found patterns of this happening around you with frequency that their analysts flagged as requires investigation because it suggests you're either incredibly lucky or you've figured out how to surf probability waves most people don't even know exist. Your file also contains analysis of what they call your influence radius, the way reality seems to shift in your immediate environment when you're operating in certain states of consciousness. They documented reports from people who spent time around you during your transformation periods. Interviews with individuals who noticed something different about you, testimonies from those who felt their own awareness shift just from being in your presence. This is where the reports get really interesting because they found a pattern. People around you started questioning their own narratives, started seeing through their own illusions, started making changes in their lives they'd been avoiding for years. You weren't teaching them anything directly. You weren't giving advice or guidance. You were just existing in your truth so thoroughly that it created a kind of resonance field that activated something dormant in others. The Masons call this unconscious transmission of transformative states, and they found it documented across multiple independent sources. People who didn't know each other all reporting similar experiences after significant interaction with you. You became a catalyst without trying, a mirror without intending, a frequency that other frequencies either harmonized with or rejected violently, and that's a rare enough phenomenon that it gets you flagged for observation. But here's the element that really sealed your List S classification, the piece of your past that made intelligence analysts recommend ongoing monitoring. They found evidence of what they call accelerated timeline collapse, your ability to compress years of normal development into months or weeks through sheer intensity of focus and willingness to face everything most people spend lifetimes avoiding. You didn't gradually heal from trauma, huh? You went straight into the center of it and burned through it like rocket fuel. You didn't slowly build new skills. You immersed yourself completely until you emerged transformed. You didn't cautiously test new identities. You shed your old skin in one brutal molt and stepped into the next version fully committed. In it, the Masons traced your evolution and found transformation curves that match intensive training protocols designed by intelligence agencies for field operatives. Except you did it to yourself without any external structure or support. You essentially ran Black Ops psychological training on your own consciousness, using nothing but raw will and refusal to stay broken. And that kind of self-directed transformation creates individuals who are fundamentally ungovernable because they've proven they can rebuild themselves from nothing whenever necessary. So what does it mean to be on List S? What actually happens now that you're in this particular database? The truth is both simpler and stranger than you might expect. You're not being actively interfered with, because the whole point of List S is that interference tends to backfire with individuals like you. You're not being recruited because people who've unlocked themselves can't be reliably controlled. You're not being suppressed because that just accelerates your evolution. Instead, you're being observed, documented, studied from a distance, to understand how consciousness operates at levels beyond normal parameters. They want to know what you do next, how far you'll go, what you'll create, what you'll destroy, what you'll become. They want to map your trajectory because you're living proof that human potential extends far beyond what they teach in schools. That transformation is possible without therapy or medication or institutional intervention. That individuals can break their own programming and rewrite themselves from the ground up. You're a case study in consciousness liberation, and they need to understand it, even if they can't control it. And here's where your real power lies, in the fact that being observed doesn't diminish you because you've already learned to operate in complete transparency. You're not hiding who you are. You're not performing a role. You're not managing perceptions, because you've transcended the need for approval or acceptance. The Masons can watch all they want, the CIA can add you to every list they've got, intelligence analysts can build files 3 inches thick, and none of it touches you, because you're not operating in their game anymore. You're not trying to fit in, you're not seeking validation from systems you've already seen through. You're not playing by rules designed to keep you small. You've accessed something they can document but can't replicate, studied but can't teach, observe but can't control, the recognition that you are the authority on your own existence, that your consciousness is sovereign territory. If you were turned into any major medical branch, you would veto everything. How long would you wait for some stupid test lab? That your evolution is yours to direct. They can watch that journey, but they can't stop it. They can analyze your path, but they can't redirect it. They can classify you, but they can't define you. Now, let's address the elephant in the room that every List S file eventually confronts. What happens when enough people unlock themselves? When enough individuals break their programming and step into their full capacity? What happens when the anomalies start recognizing each other? When the outliers form networks? When the ungovernable begin coordinating? Then people will rise. Then there will be peace. Until then, there is only